Welcome back to the Next Level You podcast, where we help you build the bridge between your now and your next. Today we continue our A to Z journey with the letter G. G is for grace. Grace is a word many of us recognize, but very few of us know how to practice intentionally, especially during seasons of failure, growth, pressure, and responsibility. At its core, grace is the ability to respond to yourself with honesty, compassion, and steadiness in moments where perfection is not possible. It is how you acknowledge what is real without turning it into a personal indictment. It is how you allow room for learning without abandoning accountability. Grace is often framed as soft, as optional, as something you turn to after everything else fails. But in this episode, we want to reframe grace as a skill, a discipline, a form of self-leadership. Grace is not permission to quit. Grace is permission to be human while you keep going. That distinction matters deeply for listeners who are disciplined, ambitious, and committed to becoming better versions of themselves. Because when you care about growth, grace can feel uncomfortable, even risky.
Many of us were taught that progress comes from pushing through, from discipline, from consistency, from sacrifice. And to be clear, discipline matters, consistency matters, effort matters. But what often gets left out of these conversations is what happens when pushing through becomes the default response to everything. When rest feels like failure, when slowing down feels irresponsible, when the struggle starts to feel like a personal flaw, this is where grace becomes necessary.
Grace becomes essential when effort and outcome no longer align. When you are doing what you know how to do, showing up consistently, and still feel behind, tired, or uncertain. You followed the plan. You stayed committed. You did the work. And yet, something feels off. Research on burnout, including guidance from the World Health Organization, reminds us that exhaustion is not a character flaw. It's what happens when stress outpaces recovery. Without grace, the gap between effort and outcome often turns inward, becoming shameful. Without grace, growth turns into self-punishment. With grace, growth becomes something you can sustain. One of the clearest places grace disappears is in our self-talk. Many of us extend grace easily to others. We normalize learning curves, we understand overwhelm, we offer patience. But when it comes to ourselves, that grace vanishes. Instead, we default to self-criticism. I should be further by now. I should not feel this tired. I should already have this figured out. From a cognitive behavioral lens, these thoughts matter because how we think shapes how we feel and how we act. Frameworks for achieving goals with grace do not remove ambition. They blend ambition with self-compassion. They shift the mindset from harsh perfectionism to sustainable progress. Failure is reframed as information rather than identity. Effort is measured in small steps, not all or nothing outcomes. Grace invites inner alignment. It asks whether our goals still reflect our values, not just our expectations. It grounds us in the present moment rather than punishing ourselves for where we think we should be. And when we replace "I should already be there" with I'm learning how to get there. Resilience increases. Energy stabilizes. Progress becomes possible. Grace does not lower the standard. It changes the way we relate to the standard, allowing us to keep moving forward without burning ourselves out.
This is where cognitive behavioral psychology helps us understand what's happening. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, teaches that our thoughts directly influence how we feel and how we behave. When our internal dialogue becomes harsh, absolute, or judgmental, it doesn't motivate growth. It narrows our thinking and drains energy. Grace interrupts this cycle. Grace does not deny responsibility. Grace reframes the story. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" Grace asks, "What's happening here, and what do I need to move forward?"
Another reason grace is so misunderstood is because many people believe acknowledging discomfort means giving up. We're taught, often implicitly, that if something feels hard, heavy, or uncomfortable, it must be wrong. That discomfort is a signal to stop, quit, or reassess whether we are capable at all. But research grounded in acceptance and commitment theory offers a different perspective.
The acceptance and commitment theory reminds us that discomfort does not mean stop. It means allowing internal experiences like frustration, fear, doubt, or fatigue to exist without letting them dictate your behavior. The acceptance and commitment theory teaches that pain is a normal part of growth, change, and meaning making. The goal is not to eliminate discomfort, but to change a relationship with it. Grace allows you to say, "This is hard," without turning that statement into a verdict about your worth, ability, or future. You can feel discouraged and still show up. You can feel afraid and still take the next step. You can feel tired and still act in alignment with what matters to you.
This is where values come in. Grace, through an acceptance and commitment theory lens, asks a different question. Not, how do I get rid of this feeling, but who do I want to be in this moment, even with this feeling present? When your actions are anchored in values rather than comfort, progress becomes steadier and more sustainable. Grace keeps you moving forward without requiring emotional perfection. It makes room for the full human experience while protecting your commitment to growth. You are not waiting to feel ready. You are not waiting to feel confident. You are choosing alignment over avoidance. And that choice, made repeatedly, is grace in action.
Before we move on, let's pause for a brief reflection that you can do right now, wherever you are. Take a moment to notice what feels uncomfortable for you today. It might be frustration. It might be fatigue. It might be uncertainty or fear. Don't try to fix it. Just name it. Now, ask yourself this question. Even with this discomfort present, what value do I want to act from in this moment? It could be integrity, consistency, care, curiosity, or patience.
You do not need a perfect answer. You're not solving your whole life. Just choose one small action that reflects that value. Send the email. Take the walk. Have the conversation. Rest with intention. This is what grace looks like in practice. Not waiting for discomfort to disappear, but choosing alignment anyway.
Grace is needed most in the moments we try to hide. For example, moments like missed goals, burnout, career detours, emotional reactions you wish you had handled differently, timelines that shift, seasons where progress feels invisible. These moments are rarely celebrated or publicly known. However, they are a part of nearly every meaningful growth journey.
Here's the truth we want to say clearly. You don't need grace because you failed. You need grace as you grow. Growth stretches identity, and so it disrupts comfort and it exposes limits. Grace keeps you connected to yourself during that stretch instead of turning on yourself. There is also an essential physiological layer to grace. Research on the nervous system reminds us that we cannot reflect, learn, or problem solve effectively when we are chronically dysregulated. When the body is overwhelmed, the brain shifts into survival mode.
Grace creates enough internal safety for the nervous system to settle. Only then does reflection become possible. This is why pushing harder rarely works when you are already exhausted. Grace is not avoidance, it's regulation, and regulation is a prerequisite for growth.
Grace also plays a decisive role in how we experience comparison. When grace is missing, comparison becomes evidence against yourself. You forget context, you forget different starting points, and you forget unseen support systems. And this is where the growth mindset is often misunderstood.
A growth mindset is not about endless pushing. A true growth mindset includes learning, adjustment, and rest. Without grace, a growth mindset turns into pressure. With grace, a growth mindset turns into progress. Grace brings you back to your own lane and reminds you that progress does not have to look efficient to be meaningful.
Grace is not softness. Grace is strength with compassion. Research on psychological safety, including work from the Harvard Business School, shows that people learn and perform better when mistakes are treated as opportunities to learn rather than as evidence of failure.
The same principle applies internally. Grace creates psychological safety within oneself. It allows you to stay engaged, curious, and willing to learn instead of defensive and self-critical. This is why grace is a leadership skill, even when the person you are leading is yourself.
This brings us to the next check-in. Grace is not separate from this framework. Grace is the tone that makes it usable. So notice. What are you noticing in your body, your energy, and your self-talk right now? Evaluate. What story are you telling yourself about what you notice? Experiment. Where might grace invite a slight shift instead of a harsh correction? And track. What changes when you lead yourself with grace instead of pressure? Grace allows this process to be reflective rather than punitive. If you are constantly tired but still pushing, if your self-talk is harsher than what you would say to someone you care about, if growth feels more punishing than purposeful, grace may not be what you are lacking. It may be what you have been denying yourself.
In part 2, we will explore how to practice grace without losing momentum. But for now, sit with this reflection. What would change if you treated yourself with the same understanding you offer everyone else? Grace is not the end of growth. Grace is what allows growth to continue.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the Next Level You podcast on platforms such as YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Audible, or Amazon Music. Check our show notes for details. And if you want to dive deeper into the concepts we covered in this episode, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn by searching Next Level You. That's NEXTLEVEL and the letter U. Look for our bridge logo, and we'll see you soon.